Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Elections 2013 Presidential Panel, where AGM delegates have the opportunity to direct their questions to this year's presidential candidates. My name is Daniel Normando, and it is my privilege to moderate this panel this morning. This is an opportunity for delegates to test the mettle of your presidential delegates. I don't need to tell all of you in this room that this being a time when the Institute is facing significant challenges, where the need for strong leadership will be critical to ensure the Institute's vision and direction, that it addresses the needs of its members and positions the Institute for a strong, successful future. So this morning, the panel can provide you, AGM delegates, with an opportunity to hear from them on their views on the direction and the priorities for the years ahead, where they stand on issues that matter to the Institute today and into the future. And finally, you can also gain an appreciation for their deeply held beliefs and values and their approach to leadership. And now
for the rules of the game. Of course, only AGM delegates may ask questions. Only the moderator can recognize that individual who will be asking the question. The moderator will start by recognizing the person or delegate at mic 1, and then mics 2, 3, and 4. And start the same cycle all over again. Delegates will have 30 seconds to ask their question. One question. All candidates may answer the same question if they decide they so wish, and they have 1 minute to answer, and time will be clocked by a member of the Elections Committee.
Candidates wishing to respond to the question will signal the moderator. And if no candidates respond, we shall move on to the next question. At the conclusion of the questions and answers, the candidates may take 1 minute to offer a closing statement. The panel, of course, will be videotaped and will be available on the PIPS website. So let's get on with the panel. And I'll begin. Microphone number 1.
Karen Mingarelli, and my question is for the panel. What will you do differently to ensure a different and better result if you win?
Debbie Davio.
I'll start by saying, ça me fait très plaisir d'être parmi vous.
That I'm pleased to be with you this morning. Thank you.
A lot of things. And I think it's time that we started doing things differently. I think it's time we started taking bold actions that are concrete, that produce results, that we follow through on. I think we need to be making sure that we're addressing the priorities that are important to our members, not just those that are important to us as a union or as union activists. And I think it's time we modernize the way we do business. Changing our style, changing our approach, changing our culture so that it is a culture that's inclusive and one that attracts not just our standard group of activists, but activists from all genres, from all demographics, and I think it's time we made a difference.
Thank you. Shannon?
Just adding on to what Debbie said, I think it's critically important at this time that we show strong leadership at PIPS, that we build on the strengths of all of our stewards, all of our elected officials, all members of the board of directors, and we take advantage of the unique skill set that they bring to the table. I also think it's critically important that we engage with the official opposition party and even the Conservatives, that we arm them with questions, tough questions, to ask in the House of Commons in order to get the real story out. Thank you.
Robert.
I think we need, in the last couple of years, we've been laying a foundation for a much stronger union. We need to build on that. I want to ensure that we have clearly set in front of us our purpose. I don't mean in general terms, but very specifically. What do we want to do? How do we want to do it? Some of this is in place now, but we need to laser focus on engaging our members. I don't mean sending newsletters out to them, what we started to talk about, but we really get out to our stewards and mobilize the stewards and get them to be leaders in the workplace of their members, which honestly hasn't happened as much as we should have. And as president, I want to set a different tone for this union in terms of ensuring that we deal with each other better than some of the things we saw yesterday. As well, we have to seriously think about how we want to engage in the next federal election, because that's going to be critical for our existence.
Steve.
Number one, let's get the vice presidents fully engaged. Based on what I've been hearing, they're not engaged because somebody's afraid they might do a better job and, as a result, be a threat. I am not threatened by having good people around me. They're here to work for the members. I will put them to work. They will be fully engaged. And then we will move on and we will do what we need to do to make sure that we are representing the members of the Institute.
Gary.
I take the point on the MPs. We're already beginning to do some of that. Matter of fact, it is something that we do. You know, and we have begun to do things much differently. Look at the Better Together campaign, for example, where we're engaging, working with other bargaining agents. We are doing that. Efficiency is a huge issue for the Institute. We're asking for dues increases, and like my colleague said, he wants to engage the vice presidents, but maybe the vice presidents aren't really required, that many vice presidents, since we changed the organizational structure, and I'm sure that'll come up later. So engaging all of the members of the board is important, and engaging, making the right mix of members at the board is important, and I plan on doing that in my next term.
Thank you. Frank?
I think everyone here is missing the point. We're not getting our members to be in the front line. We need them to be in the front line, and it has not happened in the past, and I intend to do whatever I can to put them in the front line. We got to be visible. We got to be in public. We are professionals, and we have to show who we are in public. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to question number 2. Question micro 2.
Mic 2, please.
How many vice presidents do you guys think we actually need?
I'll start with Gary.
Yeah, I think, and I've drafted this position up, we need 2 vice presidents, 2 part-time vice presidents. There really isn't a requirement for full-time vice presidents. First, it's an efficiency issue. Many of you know that I changed the organizational structure in 2007. When I did that, we created chiefs positions. When those were created, there was I became the CEO, and there was really a redundancy in the number of vice presidents. We could change the organization from 5 on the exec committee to 3 on the executive committee. There really would be no changes. The president would still be able to work with an executive committee. The board of directors, the directors have taken on more responsibilities in their particular regions. When we changed the organizational structure and we had a chief operating officer, issues started to arise in terms of who runs the organization. Full-time vice presidents are always at the site, so it's caused some issues, and we know about that. So I say you could run the organization with 2 part-time vice presidents.
Thank you. Steve?
I was a strong advocate of having 2 full-time vice presidents, and it happened while I was president. Those people were fully engaged. I intend to keep them fully engaged. But I like the question. It's fun being a politician and getting to answer a question where I have no data. I can make it up. I don't know how many we need. I do know we need people working full-time for us, And I do know that when I'm president, they will be fully engaged, working full-time. We've had 4 vice presidents since I joined this organization back in 1984. I haven't seen anything that says we should change that. I would be interested in seeing what report the board had commissioned. What did that say? Give me some data. Let's have something we can actually talk about without trying to make it up as we go.
Shannon?
Like Steve, I don't know what the correct number of VPs is. I dare say no one around this room knows what the correct number of VPs is. I'd hate to think PIPS has become like this government and is willing to make decisions without any evidence, with a biased group of people making the particular decision. The bottom line is we need a full study of our full governance structure, and we don't leave a decision this important to the members of the board of directors who are all in conflict. This is a decision that should be made by the whole of our membership once a full and comprehensive study is completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert?
I rather think it's sort of putting the cart before the horse. I have my own feelings what the number is, but to some extent I don't know don't know all the facts. But it depends how you use the vice presidents. And it's more than just simply coming in and doing desk work. Part of the point of the vice presidents is to sit together in an executive committee and provide varying points of view to help guide the institute. You cut down the numbers, you cut down the points of view. The question is how you use them, how you listen to them, how you engage them, how you assign work. I think that could be done much better. But and as Steve mentioned, for as long as I can remember, there's always been 4 vice presidents. So, and we were, when I joined the institute, we were 17,000 members. So we're what, 55 now? So there's not, to me, an obvious argument that has been publicly made that has not been based, frankly, on personalities. And we don't make structural changes because you think the people currently in the job are not doing a good job. We elect better people. And the arguments have not been won.
Thank you, Debbie.
Got to get my hand up quicker because Steve stole my thunder. You know, the truth of the matter is we really aren't the people to be making this decision without the proper information. Because the AGM is the supreme governing body, but certainly we need to have everything in front of us before we can make a choice like that. That being said, from my perspective, I think we need more full-time officials, not less. That we need work that can't be done by part-time people, work that puts our part-time people who are in the workplace part-time at risk. You can't go to the media and start bad-mouthing your employer. You can't run around lobbying MPs because they are your employer. So these are jobs that need to be done by full-time officials, and had we been engaged to do these jobs on your behalf, we'd be doing a lot better today. These resolutions coming to reduce the VPs, from my perspective, it looks a little bit like the American Tea Party. You don't like who is elected, so now you want to eliminate the positions, and I'm not okay with that, and you should not be okay with it either.
Frank?
In my opinion, there should be 1 VP for 1 president. All of my colleagues here have not pointed out that we are in a fiscal restraint mode, we are operating in a deficit, and they don't consider the cost. There is a cost associated with having so many vice presidents. It's about, at minimum, salary costs of $300,000 without the benefits. This is a cost. It's a cost to you and me as members. It's something we have to consider, and I don't think any of these panel members have put that point forth, and I'm putting it forth now.
Thank you. Microphone number 3.
Good morning. My name is Peter Gabriel. I'm with the AV group here in Gatineau. I'm the subgroup president as well.
And your question?
My question is the following. On collective bargaining, the last 2 collective agreements, I'm very proud to be a member of PIPS because my income has risen $20,000 in the same pay level that I was making 6 years ago. I've heard some members on the panel say, that's not good enough. I'm very, very proud. I want to hear from you who could be the next president. How can you improve upon that? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll start with Gary.
You have to realize bargaining is a cyclical thing. Remember the times when there were zeros. I know that over the last number of years, we've just barely kept up with inflation, and that's a concern to the members. We're going to be facing a government that, and an employer, frankly, that really doesn't want to give pay raises. We are strong because we're professionals, because we know what we're doing. We're going to be able to leverage on that fact, that the government does need professionals to continue. We're going to have to lobby more with the politicians, with the parliamentarians, and sure, we have to show that we're ready to go out and do something. I pointed to the PIPSC strike a number of weeks ago that lasted 7 weeks. We really have to engage our members first and foremost to make sure that we can prove our worth at the bargaining table and prove to the employer that we mean business. And that's what Better Together is all about as well, better results at the bargaining table.
Shannon?
I think we need to fundamentally change the way we collective bargain. You know, the government's declared all-out war on us. Bill C-4 is clear evidence of that. We need to collaborate with the other bargaining agents. We need to take a common stand, common position, and quite frankly, on issues that affect all PIPS members equally, that cut across all group lines, we need to have one central table. We can't afford to let the government pick us off one group at a time. You know, otherwise they will be driving the agenda. We will not have any opportunity to change what they're setting out to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
Unlike some of the other unions in town who will remain PSAC, we don't normally have our senior elected national figures running collective bargaining for us. We leave that to the groups, the group autonomy, to decide what it is they want to seek at the table. The role of the president is to make sure that the bargaining team and the staff have the resources they need to support their effort at collective bargaining. The president and the vice president should be held in reserve to help when that help is necessary. We need to be supporting the groups. On the issue of a central table, stronger together, absolutely, but make sure that we take a look at what are the potential implications of one central table. Are we ready for the employer to say, well, if you can bargain together, then you can be a bargaining unit together? Do you want to be one big group? If you do it with your eyes wide open. Don't do it by default because you started down a process that didn't work.
Debbie?
When we talk about bargaining, we're not talking only about salaries. We're talking about the terms and conditions of work. We have to consider everything. As far as I'm concerned, the answer to this question is in solidarity, to work with all the other unions to ensure that we have a common approach. It's not a common table that I'm looking for. I'm looking for a way of doing things together. The same terms, the same approach, the same struggle for everyone, for all members, for all institute groups. And we have to work with the other unions, as I said. Under the NJC, I've got good relationships with the other presidents of other unions, and I'm sure that they're willing to work with us as I am willing to do so with them. Thank you.
More along the lines of what Debbie was saying, I believe that we do need to group together with other union leaders. What Steve was, or Shannon was referring to a central bargaining table, well, that's not the right approach. I think the way to do it is let the collective bargaining agreements expire. Then you will have the bargaining power of all unions, and they will have to make a strategic effort to deal with mass mass lapses of collective bargaining agreements, and they will have to settle, together. And we will be looking to ensure that they will be giving any of the bargaining units the same thing as the ones that are together right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to microphone number 4, please.
Yes, my question is, the leadership, they lead, okay? Nobody tells them what to do. And what I'm hearing is what you think that you want to do. I want to know specifically what actions you're going to take to implement whatever you want to do in the future, because we're being attacked by the government.
Thank you. Robert and Gary.
Actually, I disagree with the premise of the questioner. Leaders listen. You listen and you lead, but you also follow at the same time. And I think that is the fundamental approach I would take as leader. It doesn't that I don't have strong opinions and I push them and I stand strong for this union in front of management and Treasury Board and the public, which I've done in the past. But part of leadership is listening to people in this room, listening to the other leaders, working with them and forming a common ground.
Thank you. Gary?
The leader of an organization like ours has tools to lead. One is through networks, building networks. We've built networks with other unions, with relationships with the media, and we've built but I will say right up front, the staff are the one who act. The staff, the leaders are the one who leads the staff to make sure that we go in the directions that we need for the organization, whether it be collective bargaining, representation. So that will continue. But those networks, building those networks are also important. We've begun to do some of that with the other bargaining agents, with a wide range of allies, the CLC, the NJC, folks in New Brunswick doing pension issues. We're developing relationships with the media. These things are not developed overnight. They take time. And we've done a really great job of that. We're going to continue to do that. And in the end, the staff will be the one that carry the leadership message and the leadership actions forward.
Debbie.
I'm a servant leader. I believe in working in the trenches with people and getting the job done with everybody on deck. I believe we have to engage all of our elected officials and stewards in the work that we have in front of us. Our elected officials, the board of directors, all of our group executives, all of our regional executives, you were all elected because of your ability to influence people. We need to tool you up and give you the resources to do the job that you've been mandated to do, and I think we'll have great success when we have all hands on deck working on our behalves, young and experienced, men and women, different demographics. It's only by working together and passing the same message that we can actually succeed at the goals we've set out for ourselves. Thank you.
Steve?
Different leaders for different times. There's no one answer to what it is to be a leader. Some would say that the big trick of being a leader is finding out where people want to go and then running like hell to get in front of them. It's important to know what the membership is looking for. It's also important to know when they need the guidance to figure out where it is they want to go, where they need to go. You need to ensure that you have an understanding of the organization and the people you're representing, and then you can lead them. I've done it. I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to do it the way I did it for 9 years, 96 through 2004. I'm going to listen to people. I'm going to make suggestions. I'm going to push. I'm going to pull. I'm going to allow criticism. It's okay to disagree with the president. We need to find out where it is we need to get to. Then we can get there. Thank you.
Shannon?
Actually, I agree with just about everything that's been said up here. I especially agree with the point that different times require a different leadership style. I think everyone would also agree that you're only as strong as your weakest link. And quite frankly, PIPS and the other unions have become very complacent the last number of years. We haven't been listening to our members in the workplace. We haven't been engaging our members in the workplace. Every department, every workplace has unique circumstances, and we need to tool up our stewards so they're dealing with the issues that are important and relevant to those members in that particular workplace. Better together, one step at a time.
Thank you. Frank?
Listening to what our members say is so important right now. With regards to our current mechanism in our Constitution, there is no such mechanism except through the AGM. What I propose to do is to introduce a referendum whereby if there are issues that really burn in members' mind, they can come and make a determination that this is the approach that we should take. And at that point, we will have their buy-in. We need buy-in from the members to pursue further. And once we get that buy-in, we have no choice but to implement. And I like the grassroots movement. If they say something, we should be doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone numéro 1, mic number 1.
Kofi Krenzel, AC Director.
Get closer to the mic if you would.
Okay. As President, what 3 concrete steps would you take to create a conflict-competent culture within the Institute? In the last year, we spent about $500,000 on internal conflict. We are busy fighting each other rather than fighting the government. So what 3 concrete steps would you take to improve the culture of the Institute to avoid conflict?
Thank you. Debbie?
That's a very good question, Kofi. What would I do? Number 1, lead by example. If you want to promote a culture of a competent culture, as you called it, you need to demonstrate that. You need to lead with that culture, and only then can you expect other people to take up that culture. Number 2, accepting dissension. It's by dissension and opposing viewpoints that we better ourselves, that we create a more robust union. And we haven't been really open to change and dissension and opposition in the past few years, and I think that's a really important piece. People have to be able to dissent, and it has to be safe and not considered conflict. Lastly, we need to work with everybody, not just your political allies, but everybody, all of our elected officials.
Thank you. Steve?
Hard to narrow it down to just 3 things. Debbie hit on 2. You got to lead by example. You have to encourage informed dissent. I am not a big fan of dissenting just because you don't like something. Why don't you like it? Articulate it. Let's have a conversation. Let's recognize that a difference of opinion doesn't mean harassment. A difference of opinion means that there's more than one way to look at something. Let's take a look at all aspects of it. Sometimes you have to ask questions where you seem to be leaning in one direction, but you're not. You just want to make sure that everything is being explored. So it's going to take a lot of work. We have a dysfunctional board. We need to start there. Leadership by example is not just for the president. It's for the board of directors as well.
Gary?
Those words really resonate for me, Steve. Absolutely. We need everybody to be on board. It's not just for the president, it's for all of the members of the board. And I would say one is leading by example. That's one of the concrete things, for sure. I also am a member of the Ethics Practitioners of Canada, and one of the things that we deal with is codes. There's certainly a code that we can develop, a code for the board of directors, a code of ethics that we could live by and all sign on to. So I would develop a code. And also, I would increase and put more money into training for people on ethics, on things like ethics. Bring ethics experts into the board to talk about that. Bring governance experts in to make sure that we are running a respectful organization, an organization that serves the members, an organization that is leadership for the members, an organization that takes care of the financial resources for the members, an organization that really gets along like one family. Thank you.
Everyone here has hit the nail on the head when they say that the leadership sets a tone. We absolutely have to lead by example. There's a trickle-down effect without a doubt. As leaders, we need to not be afraid to get involved in conflict between our members. just like any relationship, if you let things fester, they get so far out of hand that at the end of the day, there's nowhere for it to go but bad. We need to promote respectful communications. The last thing I would do would be totally revamp our steward policy in terms of who we bring in as stewards, the steward renewal process, all of the guidelines. Not everyone is well equipped to be a steward. If you can't handle conflicts, thank you.
Frank. We are professionals. Why the heck are we not acting like professionals? It does not make one iota of sense. We should be respectful of everyone and their points of views. I only have one thing to say, and this has not been addressed at all with regards to the new proposed policy on harassment and discipline. Why aren't these claims being made public? Everyone should be able to see these things. There are consequences for making false accusations. If they're known to make continuous false accusations, who hell will believe in them? There is no reason to keep this secrecy hidden any longer. All we are is festering conflict. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert?
I agree with much of what's being said. As president, the first and foremost place to lead by example is the board of directors. That's what we engage the other senior leaders of the union, and I won't add much to that. I'm not a big believer in codes. If you act, if the culture is right, you don't need a code. And if your culture is wrong, a code becomes a weapons cabinet to start attacking each other, in my opinion. Key thing to remember, this culture has to change through the entire leadership. That's you. And the president needs to lead that change. Many of us enter into our political positions as stewards without with inadequate tools because we come from environments where I learned to talk to computers, not people. It's not necessarily a personality problem. We lack the tools. That needs to be changed in our training. That's something else to be done. And finally, we need to break down the barriers within this union between group and between region and group.
Let's go to microphone number 2, please. Micro numéro 2.
When President Corbett came to the Steward Council in Halifax, he thanked us for accommodating his busy schedule on no less than 6 occasions. I understand the same theme carried through as he touched down at Steward Councils all across the country. And now, today, he's telling us he has twice as many VPs as he needs. It seems to me to be an issue of management and delegation of authority. But I have a simple question. This is the supreme governing body. This is where governance instruments are given to the Institute to manage throughout the year. It gives authority to the board.
And your question?
My question is, if you as president were to be aware of policy being contravened or circumvented, bylaws being circumvented at the Institute, what would you do to correct it?
Thank you. Gary?
Well, policies are guidelines that are developed by the board of directors, and more or less the rules are stretched to a certain extent sometimes. It happens. My job, my role as a leader, if I understand that they're being contravened, is raise up the issue all the way up to the board of directors, have a discussion about what's going on, make sure that we do get the policies right that fixes the organization. I mean, that's how our organization runs. The AGM is a supreme governing body, and in between that, it's the board of directors who takes charge. And I have done this in terms of when policies were seen to be contravened, and we do get those types of complaints. We have that discussion among ourselves, among that family, to make sure that we either get the policy right or pull the person or people or group who are contravening the policy in line. That's the way it works. So that's what I would do, make sure that we have that discussion to make sure we get the policies right.
Steve?
You have to gather the facts, what's really going on. You have to follow policy yourself in terms of what's the mechanism for dealing with this. Make sure the people who are in charge of dealing with it deal with it, and then take the steps that are necessary once you know what actually is going on. It's not always the president that has to do something. Sometimes it's the board. Sometimes it's executive committee. Different authority depending on what policy is being contravened. But number one, let's find out what's really going on.
Robert?
I think Steve stole my notes. Right at the top. Gather.
I can read.
Yes. Gather the facts.
Side read.
Because just because someone thinks a policy is violated doesn't mean the policy's been violated. We've been down that road too often. It's a huge mistake we make. Yes, policy gets violated on a regular basis, but not 100% of the time. As well, you have to understand what is, and where it goes to depends on what's happened. And then you're into a computer program. The flow chart suddenly gets very complicated at that point, and I don't think you want to listen to that. But one thing you have to remember is, what is the intent of the bloody policy? Sorry for my English, but it's policies can't cover all instances. If the action follows the intent of the policy, and we are trying to write policy which states what the intent is up front, that may be okay, just because it violates some technical thing way down on page 25.
Debbie?
The truth is, I think we have too many policies and rules at the Institute, and I think that might be the base of why we're not attracting all types of people to our organization. There are rules around everything. There are rules around elections that say that, people can't support me publicly. There are rules now that we can't go into workplaces, around elections. There are policies that we put in place to address specific instances 15 years ago that are still in play and simply don't make any sense anymore. So when somebody's contravening policy, I think the first thing we need to look at is, does the policy make sense? And if it doesn't, then we need to take the proper steps to adjust those policies to match our current times and our current environment. Number two, if it is a problem, if it's really something that's being contravened, that's important to us and reflects our values, then we need to nip the problem in the bud before it becomes an urgent problem, before it becomes conflict, and before it starts to draw on the resources of our organization. I would be nipping problems in the bud immediately in the hopes that we don't have them in the future.
Shannon?
We need a rule of law at PIPS. Our members deserve to be able to expect that the Institute will follow our policies. We regularly hold the employer to account when they don't. We absolutely need to follow the Institute policies, and as president of the Institute, the president has the responsibility of ensuring that bylaws are properly enforced. When have we got ourselves in trouble? When we don't follow the bylaws. That's been our biggest fiascos in court, and it's cost us a lot of money.
Frank?
I think everybody has been missing the boat. If you have a if you have this breach of policy, obviously the first thing to do is discuss what the heck is going on. If you don't know, seek legal advice, seek professional advice. That has not been offered as a solution. If it can be resolved by that avenue, let it be. That'll be the end of it. Thank you.
All right, let's go to microphone number 3, micro numéro 3.
Merci.
With all respect, ladies and gentlemen, my question, what is your position and why regarding the resolution to be presented today regarding the dues increase?
Robert?
We haven't had a dues increase in 6 years. As Kevin Page asked today, you freeze the departmental budget for 6 years. You can't expect them to keep on doing the same thing. It makes no sense. And when we're approaching a time when we need to be more active than ever, I wasn't whether $7 is enough, but at this point I'm going for $7.
Gary?
I've been working quite diligently over the last month to express to the membership and to communicate with the membership the need for a dues increase, and it's absolutely essential that we do have one. I was in favor of it last year, and I'm absolutely in favor of it this year. So much so, I started to work with the Chief Financial Officer in policy to talk to the membership, to provide the case for the membership that shows why we need this dues increase. This dues increase is absolutely essential, considering what this government is going to be doing. Look at what's happened in Calgary and what we've seen at the Calgary Conservative Convention. This dues increase will set us in a position that we're able to move forward in strength, to work with the other union movement and to be leaders in the union movement. We absolutely need this dues increase. Thank you.
Steve?
If I was a voting delegate, I'd be voting in favor of the dues increase. This is typical of the feast and famine cycle that the Institute engages in when it comes to the dues. Big dues increase, no dues increase, no dues increase, no dues increase, big dues increase. It's going to be interesting to listen to the discussion, not just on that, but also on the resolution to set an amount of increase to the dues automatically. I'm not sure you're going to be able to enforce that over the coming years, but it's typical. I walked into the AGM yesterday morning, and it's like I hadn't been away for 9 years. I've heard these discussions before. I've been part of them. So when it comes down to it, I'd vote in favor of it.
Debbie?
As many of you may know, I spoke quite passionately against the dues increase last year. I felt the Institute had not done what it needed to do to tighten its belt and to find the efficiencies that were there to find. As a result, the board went away. We found $1.9 million in savings, and that put our deficit in a much lower position than it was predicted in June when we passed the $7 dues increase at the board. That being said, we no longer need $7 to balance the budget, but we do need $7 to do to face all of the attacks that we're going to be facing. We are going to need some money in our war chest to make this happen. We need the money, number one, just to keep the lights on. Then we need to continue to find efficiencies so that we can continue to augment our services. And I do believe that an annual increment, an annual dues increase, automatic, is necessary so that we can continue to focus on the business that's really important to us at the AGM, as opposed to debating a dues increase that's highly elevated because we haven't had one in several years. So we're going to need money to continue to deliver these services to members.
I vote against this dues increase. It's the easy way out. You say, the board says that they've done all they can with to get efficiencies. I disagree totally with it. It's just recently disclosed additional information about what costs are incurred by the Institute. I encourage you to look in the portal for this information. There is cuts that can be made to make this organization more efficient, and with those savings, you can do everything they're alluding to and more. Thank you.
Shannon?
We absolutely need the dues increase. The government has declared war. Treasury Board has declared war. However, it can't be a license to spend money foolishly. We need to continue on the path we're on, where we're closely monitoring our costs. And, you know, from my perspective, the staff have done a great job in terms of making their operations efficient. I can't say the same about the political side of the House. I think there's lots of things we can do differently. We need to look for more cost-efficient ways of conducting business, more meetings conducted remotely. Let's join the 21st century, and that's something coming from me. Thank you.
Microphone numéro 4, mic 4.
My question, Mario Cucluzzi, CSNCR, is also with the dues increase, and you've answered some of my question. Our members are being asked to make another sacrifice, as well as the attacks they're getting from the government. I would have liked to see more cost savings options.
Is that what you want to hear from people?
No. My question is, do you think the salaries of the president, vice president are justified? Would you accept a cut in salaries to help sacrifice also?
Thank you for that question. Gary?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes is the easy answer because I have another source of income. I have a pension. I will live with what the Executive Compensation Committee determines as the correct amount through discussions with the board, through discussions with the AGM. I'm here to serve the members. I'm not here to serve myself.
Debbie?
Well, I always tell people that I earn too much money to be a good socialist anyhow. But nonetheless, you know, I believe I should be paid for the work that I do. Whatever the ECC determines is the appropriate rate of pay, that's what I should be paid for. I don't think I should be paid for being a CS2. You know, the job I used to do in government, I think I should be paid for being a vice president. We give up a lot of evenings, pretty much every Saturday. We work so many hours that at the end of the day we're probably earning minimum wage, but nonetheless I think the pay should simply reflect the work that we do, and it should be devised through appropriate mechanisms to determine what that pay is. But yes, I would be willing to accept a pay cut if that's what it was determined was appropriate for our organization and what kept our organization afloat, most certainly.
Frank?
I agree with Debbie's last statement as to whatever the compensation committee decides, it's fair game. But what I would like to put forth as well is, you know what? We are in tough times. To show leadership, I would say that there is built-in increments and costs of living allowances or economic increases built into this position. I'm saying for the next 2 years or until the deficit situation is resolved, there should be no economic increase. There should be no increment. It should be the fixed rate. That shows leadership. And if we're willing to do that, then we can expect everyone else to pull in the belt as well. Thank you.
At the risk of sounding like a parrot, I too support whatever the executive would determine is the appropriate salary for a VP. Like Debbie, I think you should be paid for the job you're doing. That's a principle we subscribe to in the workplace. I'd like to think it's the principle we subscribe to at PIPS. I absolutely agree that we should share in the pain in terms of what we're asking our members to do. And I have to say, I brought forward a lot of recommendations recently to the Executive Compensation Committee in terms of takeaways, you know, dealing with our sick leave, making it in line what our members get, you know, making the moving allowance for full-time elected officials equivalent to the policy that's in the government. Absolutely. Thank you.
Robert?
Yes, the simple knee-jerk reaction is to say you accept it. But the fact of the matter is, you have no say in the matter. The board decides. You're not part of the discussion. I suppose you could lobby, but I'm not going to get into that. You know, it's, you know, for me as president, intervening in that directly, other than sending a memo over, would be inappropriate. And frankly, as president, you got much more important things to worry about, like the efficiency of the organization as a whole. Of course, I would. If the board decides to cut the salary, fine, that's life. I'm going to move on. There are far more important things to worry about in terms of operate efficiently and do service for the members. I'll live with it.
Thank you. We're almost out of time, and microphone number 1, micro 1, you'll be the last question.
My question to the panel is the following. Je vais la poser en français.
I'll ask it in French. How will go about changing the paradigm? We're confronted with an adversary, a government which does not respect us and does not respect the rules. Please do not muzzle me. Your time has elapsed. What paradigm shift will you operate in order to transform this union, to go from a union of bureaucrats to a union that's truly efficient, that brings results for its members and value for money?
My members, I represent 3,000 members in the NCR, scientists and professionals.
Merci, monsieur.
Please do not muzzle me. That's my...
Thank you. Your question was clear.
You heard.
Merci. Pour votre question. We'll start with Gary.
We've already begun to change the paradigm early in the spring. of this year, we started working with our affiliates, as affiliates of Canadian Labour Congress, to work with all of Labour in the country, 3.3 million strong in the CLC, to change the question, to stop letting the government just beat us up, but to go back and start to communicate and demonstrate and advertise the value of union and to generate the desire back in our membership. We've already started to shift a paradigm to what unions were as they became important way back when they first rose up against corporations. So we have started to change that paradigm. We need to keep on track, working for the common members, making sure that we can mobilize them and show the value of unions. And we've started that. We've started that conversation. We're going to do that. We're only at the beginning of it, and we've already seen tremendous success. Debbie?
Thank you. What would I do? Working with labor is definitely a no-brainer, but I think we need to go beyond that. We need to be working with management right up to the deputy minister level. We could certainly be pushing the same agenda from both sides. We need to work with government. Even the Conservative government can be swayed if we're presenting the right arguments in the right way. This government has attacked so many different types of Canadians. We ought to be binding forces with all of those Canadians. If there's one silver lining on this cloud of this government, it's that they have annoyed so many people that there is a force, there is a mass, and we can get together and we can make a difference because we're all standing together on the same position. Thank you.
This organization was created in 1920 and it has been evolving ever since. It has gone through a number of shifts. 1967, when it became a certified bargaining agent, had to take on the idea that it actually was a union. That has evolved since then. When we established the strike fund in the late 1980s, yes, I go back that far, that was another shift for this organization. The thought that some of our members would go on strike, some of them had gone on strike before. We just didn't have a strike fund to support them. We've gone through those shifts. You have to caution about seeking a paradigm shift because paradigm shifts are disruptive. I much prefer the evolution of this organization, the way it's evolving, to join the House of Labour, to be part of the conversation, to be part of making a difference for the members and for Canadians.
Actually, to start with what Debbie said, how could you say it better? The other thing I would add to what she said is that we need to take advantage of all our members right across the country to help change the channel. We're lucky enough that we're in all geographical areas. Our members have a better voice than we do in terms of influencing their family, their friends, lobbying local MPs who are interested in what they have to say, because guess what? They're going to vote them back in next time around. And of course, arming the opposition MPs, and as Debbie said, even the Conservatives, with the right information so that the Canadian public, everything's debated in the House of Commons, and the Canadian public gets to know the true story. Thank you.
Robert?
Yes, you don't necessarily seek paradigm shifts. They happen. You develop, and we're in the middle of one right now. Joining the CLC has such a tremendous impact on how the union is approaching our environment, what we're doing, and the strength we're building. It's, however, only at the beginning. We need to build that further. We also need to break down the barriers within this union, which are very clear and evident, so we can work across and exchange ideas about shouting at each other that the other side doesn't know what they're talking about. Finally, and we're starting this, is we really need to engage the members, which does not mean sending newsletters out to them, but talking to them, listening to them. That's what we're starting. That's a multi-year project. We're just started, and we need to engage the CLC and the unions not only to take stuff away from them, but to change them as well. It's possible for us to do it. We need to be active.
Frank?
I think we have to go back to the community, how we can serve them and make it known that we are public servants who are not necessarily bureaucrats. We are professionals. We have to make it known to them that we are doing this. And one way of doing this is to volunteer in community activities, get the grassroots movement behind us. Once we have that, they're the ones who ultimately will elect officials. We need their input, and that's how we can get involved. We need 55,000 of our members extremely engaged in those community activities, show what we are worth, and then from there we work upwards. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to conclude this panel with a final word, 1 minute, from each candidate. Et nous allons débuter avec Debbie Davio.
We will start with Debbie Davio.
Merci.
Thank you.
The biggest thing I bring to the table as a new president of PIPS is that I'm still growing and changing to reflect our members' changing needs. I'm extremely open-minded, and anybody who's worked with me knows that I can be influenced to change my perspective to meet their needs. I'm tech-savvy with new communication mediums. I'm bilingual. I'm connected and open to all members. I have the capacity to work with our partners in the community, with unions, our managers, right up to the DM level, with government at large. And no problem is too small for my attention. It
is time for audacious measures. It is time for a better use of our membership dues. It is time for a modern vision. It is time for Debbie Davio. So please visit my website, debbiedavio.ca, to see my vision, my opinions, my history. You can also contact myself through the website, and I am available, and I will be pleased to answer your questions. Thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Colleagues, I want to be your next president to restructure the Professional Institute. I want to be the chief executive officer in title, function, and authority, duty of which I believe is currently not being performed well. I will ensure that the resources you entrust the Institute will be used to maintain efficient and effective operations. I will vote against the proposed dues increase because I know there are expenditures that can be eliminated or reduced after reviewing and determining essential services that you need and use. If there is a dues increase, I will still execute these cost reduction exercises. I will ensure that your hard-earned dollars will be directed for effective collective bargaining, representation against your employer, and defending against government attempts to erode your remaining benefits. I will make the Institute accountable to you for all these dollars spent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sure.
Colleagues, members, strong leadership is required at this time, and the Institute needs that. You'll need knowledgeable, experienced, and qualified leader. Now, I occupied all these positions of the Institute for some years and actually helped craft this organization. And you know, I've always stuck to a few tenets: hard work and commitment to members. And I believed in the values of integrity, honesty, professionalism. I've been approachable, responsive, not reactive, and always committed to the membership and available. I'm furthermore, over the last number of years, great success in developing networks with a wide range of organizations like the CLC, other unions, especially in the media, and the staff. And we work hard with the staff. In a nutshell, the Institute needs a leader that is knowledgeable, recognized, and connected, and one that has the trust of the staff and the members. And I think it's time that we recognize that, and this is not a time to change. Thank you very much.
Let me start by addressing a comment I heard from Frank. My name is Steve Hindle, not Stephen Harper. I am aware of money, but I am not driven by money. I know what we need to represent the members. I am willing to work on behalf of the members of the Institute. I'm very happy to hear that both Debbie and Shannon are willing to continue as vice presidents, and I'm looking forward to working with them on the executive committee. We are better together. I firmly believe that. We can do better. We need to do better. I am here, quite frankly, because the gentleman to my right is not doing a good enough job. It's pretty clear that there are members of the board that agree. There are 3 others up here with me. I will be a better president than what we have now.
Thank you. Robert?
I'm waiting.
Robert?
I have been an active member of this union for 30 years. Now, that by itself is not insufficient, but I have been part of the growth of this union. I've seen this union grow both nationally and regionally, and those of us who see me in the NCR know that I'm not stuck in the past. I have been very central in growing the NCR, particularly in the last 2 years. This union is not where it used to be. It is a much better place. And despite the moaning and groaning, some of us coming from right here, we are stronger than we've ever been before. We have laid the groundwork to be a great union. We need to move forward. And I'm running because I think I'm the person to do it. It's not a criticism of the people around me. I just think I'm the best person. I want to lead this place. I want to help the members get what they deserve. And I have shown I can do that. I can listen to people, I can work with people, and then I can tell people what we're doing.
And Shannon.
It's absolutely the time for change. We need strong leadership at the top. What we're doing now clearly isn't working. The only unfortunate part about Steve not winning the election, I will never have the opportunity to work with him or learn from him. As your president, I will continue to work hard, and I will always make decisions that are based on the best interests of the membership, taking into account our values statement. I will make sure that we're strategic, we're smarter, we're stronger, and we're inclusive. We need our members in this fight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking your 2013 presidential delegates. Ladies and gentlemen, we wish you well.